Hadrosaurs have often been consigned to the rubbish bin of cannon fodder, because at first sight there's nothing cool about them. No armor, no weapons. But there's something very elegant about the hadrosaur bow plan, which PNSO brought out so well with its past hadrosaurs. So when Olorotitan was announced, and in a rearing pose, I couldn't wait to get my hands on him. Well, here he is, and wow, nice, just nice. Now this is Ivan the Olorotitan, and as you might have guessed from the name, Olorotitan is from Russia. Indeed, one of the most complete lambeosaurines discovered outside of Western North America. And excitingly, it's known from a near-complete skeleton, so a high degree of accuracy can be reproduced in a good model. Olorotitan is estimated to be between 8 to 12 meters, or 26 to 39 feet long, and PNSO has based this on a 10 meter or 32.8 foot long, or a 4 meter and 13 foot tall individual. At a length of about 28 centimeters or 11 inches, that makes this about a 1 to 35 scale. Olorotitan means Titanic Swan, having a longer neck at 18 cervical vertebrae versus the usual 15. Now the lambeosaurines are often distinguished by unique head crests, and Olorotitan's is certainly unique. It was hollow and may have served a similar resonating function as Parasaurolophus. I've always thought of the shape as a vicious hatchet. Now interestingly, the Chinese name 上冠大天鹅龙 translates to fan-crowned Titanic Swan, suggesting another likeness and exposing my own violent tendencies. Now here's the original fossil as shown in Pascal et al. 2003. And here a reconstruction correcting for lateral compression deformation. And I think it matches pretty nicely with this PNSO model. The crest being the highlight, it's of course accented by an attention-grabbing orange and almost flame-like pattern here. Unfortunately, while I usually overlook them easily enough, there is this seam line here, which I will have to get cleared up, and you might want to as well. It really is quite obvious. The head has that detail you'd expect. The eyes are quite well painted. And the long neck is certainly accentuated here because of that reaching pose, and there's something that reminds me of the okapi or giraffe here. Now I like the general color scheme and pattern. The release images showed a purple hue, and thankfully you can see this is carried over into the actual model. So it isn't the same stripes on brown palette that PNSO has chosen in so many of their dinosaurs, much to the dismay of collectors. The way the pattern is rendered in the tail, with a kind of a natural irregularity, and here into the crenellations, creating almost colored segments. And overall, just a richness in variety of the shades and fades in different areas. For example, the flank. And the thigh. The overall feel is striking and pleasing and doesn't cry out the same old thing. I think you would have already seen the kind of integument detail, but just giving it a once-over, just look at the lines of musculature here and here. And the tension lines in the skin are a bit different from those in the quadrupedal pose, which makes logical sense to me. Different areas of skin would be stressed in different positions. Now, one thing I really like is how much more veiny this hadrosaur looks. You see here in the tail, the flank, but especially in the neck here. And that's exactly what I'd expect with the increased blood pressure associated with the standing posture. The feet are also rendered very nicely. And the hand bears those characteristic hadrosaur mittens. Of course, we have to talk about this rearing pose, and it's nice to see something that differentiates this from the other hadrosaurs, while still showing the hadrosaur proportions. I'd hoped to see one from PNSO, but never expected them to produce enough hadrosaurs to use one for this pose, and now, well, just look at it. Now, the standing hadrosaur is something very nostalgic. Even though we now know that hadrosaurs were facultative bipeds as adults, walking mainly on fours, but also were able to rear up to reach for food, to look out for danger, perhaps even limited locomotion under special circumstances. So PNSO decided to give us this more unusual pose, and done it so well, with some nice lines, he looks good from any angle. Speaking of posture, there's good evidence that as juveniles, hadrosaurs started off as bipeds. As they became adults, they then shifted to the quadrupedal stance. There are many suggestions for this. For example, Diltz's 2001 paper on Myosaura. And when we look at the cross-sectional area of the humerus, that's the upper arm bone, we see in nestlings an elliptical and offset marrow cavity. In adults, however, this cavity is more a uniform hollow cylinder. The more cylindrical the cross-sectional shape, the stronger and stiffer bone is to torsional stresses. And where did these stresses come from? Well, as you can see, when the forelimb participates in locomotion, the ground reaction force goes straight up into the shoulder joint, but the humerus lies at an angle to that, and that creates a bending moment about the elbow, requiring muscles like the triceps to stabilize. Now, muscles that participate in this exert a force in their bony attachments, causing adaptive remodeling in response to the new stresses imposed by quadrupedal use. On the other hand, the cross-sectional shape of the tibia remains a hollow cylinder from nestling to adult, implying locomotive use throughout the lifespan. Another clue is muscle attachment sites. Now, the latissimus dorsi muscle is involved in pulling the upper arm back into shoulder extension, an action which occurs heavily in quadrupedal movement. In a nestling, the attachment site is a shallow pit, but in the adult, the attachment site has become a prominent tuberosity. The rugosity of muscle attachment site relates to how heavily the muscle is used, and therefore stresses the bone it's attached to. So we can assume the lats were used a lot more heavily in the adult than in the juvenile. And if you've never tried QM, a quadrupedal movement, give it a shot and see which muscle gets the DOMs the next day. As you can see, my model stands on two legs. Be that as it may be, the stand is of course a must to guard against warping. The release images also included a family photo, and when you see them all arrayed like that, man, it just excites you. So now of course, it's the time to bring out the other PNSO hadrosaurs. Here we have the 1:38 scale lambeosaurus. Man, every time I see that green reticulated pattern, it's just so pleasing to look at. And here's the 1/30th scale Corythosaurus. Such a beautiful body plan. The head's a little bit big though on this one. And then we have the most recent Parasaurolophus in 1/35 scale, with which this current Olorotitan scales very well. Now, not only can you appreciate how beautifully put together these dinosaurs were, the color and patterns made for such a pleasing display that it really makes it hard to look at them as little more banter fodder anymore. If PNSO gives us some saurolophine hadrosaurs like Edmontosaurus or Gryposaurus in 1/35 scale, it would really build out the Hadrosauria group. So that's it for the PNSO Ivan the Olorotitan. I know I'm sounding like a broken record when I say I'm once again delighted by another PNSO model, but well, I am. I can't wait to see what PNSO's next dinosaur is. I'm still waiting for a good updated iguanodon. And PNSO hasn't even addressed the Maniraptorans or the Ornithomimosaurs. We'll just have to wait and see.